Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Love Meets Literature. We are finally on episode 5. Our podcast is in kindergarten. I am your host, Rachel, and you can find me on Instagram at Paperbacks and Sketchbooks.
And I'm your other host, Joe. You can find us on pretty much every platform at Love Meets Literature.
Yes, please do give us a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, Facebook, all the fun places. Instagram is our main one, mostly active on Instagram. So that is all Love Meets Literature. So we have a fun episode planned for you today. We are not really sure what to call this just yet, but basically we are going to be going over all of the June Book of the Month picks, and we have to guess what the other person is most likely to pick for themselves.
It's kind of like a guess the book mixed with a book roulette.
Kind of, I don't really know, because it's not like we're guessing what the book is.
Right.
We're just guessing what the other person would choose.
It's kind of like a newlywed game. They do
I-
those games where it's like, here's a question for your partner, and then they would have to write down what they think the other person would say. Like, what's your favorite candy? And then I would write what I think your favorite candy is. It's kind of like that.
All right, we'll go with that then.
The newlywed book roulette game.
Yeah, we will have something better figured out by the time this episode airs. How was your past week?
My week was good. I did a decent amount of reading, I would say.
You did. I did see you sitting and reading.
That's true. I know you did a whole ton of reading.
I tried. So I had to finish up one of my books for a book club that I recently joined on Instagram called Myth of the Month. And that book was Kaikeyi. As mentioned last episode, I was only through part 1 of it. And I was kind of iffy on it because it was moving a little bit slow. But as I kept going, it really picked up the pace and it got so good, so much so that I did not want to stop reading it.
Well, that's good.
Yes, I was very pleasantly surprised. The action picked up and it started to intersperse more familiar themes from the actual Ramayana, at least what I've read from online. So it was nice to see the author incorporate more of that while also sort of reimagining the character of Kaikeyi.
Sounds pretty good. I know you were definitely a bit hesitant after the first act, so I guess that's a pretty positive ending to it.
Yeah, the ending was actually really good. It wrapped up how I expected it to. I don't know what the author put into that ending, but it makes me want to read her newest book that just came out. I don't remember what the title of it is, but it was just released this month and it's not connected to Kaikeyi at all, but just seeing how the story progressed makes me very hopeful that her second book is going to be even better.
Is it also like a retelling?
I believe so. I believe it is based again around mythology.
Cool.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that. I did end up giving Kaikeyi 4 stars, which is a pretty good rating. My only complaint was that it did kind of move at a snail's pace during part 1. But other than that, I had 0 complaints throughout the rest of the story. So what did you recently finish reading?
I finished The Time of Contempt, which is the Witcher, or part of the Witcher series that I was reading. And I also gave this 4 stars. I have some complaints. One of the big ones is also what I mentioned last week, where they sort of character dump on you during one of the big, I guess, gatherings that happens in there. And it becomes pretty difficult to keep track of who everybody is and how they pertain to the story. There's a lot of, especially fantasy names that get thrown around, so it can be pretty easy to get a little lost. The other problem that I had was that, for people that don't know, The Witcher has Geralt, who's the main character. It has Yennefer, who you can argue is sort of one of the other main characters. That's a part. It's Geralt's main love interest. And then there's Ciri, who is, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll be vague about it, but essentially one of the other main characters that's linked to Geralt and Yennefer throughout the story. And she's a young girl. And the story talks about her growing up. And it's a guy writing a story about a girl becoming a woman.
I could see how that could be factually incorrect and also sort of misogynistic.
A little bit. He handles some things very elegantly, and it's very well written. Again, I'm a guy, so it's sort of the blind leading the blind, but I think it's a lot of the times it's well written and it's well respectful, and then other times it glosses over things and it just feels kind of odd. And especially the ending of this book had a lot of that, and it felt like he was like, oh yeah, I have to write her becoming a woman, so I'm just going to throw all that stuff right in here at the end rather than giving it its own sort of space. That part knocked off some for me. It almost fell to 3 stars after that, but then towards the end he wrapped it up fairly nicely and started to add some of that extra respect on it. And again, I think it was just a guy trying to write a girl. And it's also a bit of an older book. I believe this one was also released in the 90s. So there's a little bit of a cultural disconnection there as well. But
Isn't the author of these books also European?
yes, he is Polish, if I'm remembering correctly.
I mean, I'm not trying to knock on European men, but they do have different morals than the people of the United States, which we are used to.
Right. It's a pretty big cultural divide there. So, besides that part, if you literally take like the last chapter and you just read the important story points and then you get the gist of what he's saying and then you just move on, I think it also does the same thing because again, he felt like there was a little bit of difficulty writing that portion. But he gave it a good effort. I'll at least give him that. And so I did keep it at 4 stars.
Seems like a good rating.
Besides that, it was very good though. Like the action was nice and fast and it was very interesting. And when you could keep up with the characters, it became very intriguing. And it actually made me jump right into reading the next one, which is Baptism of Fire.
So I see you skipped over reading any of your TBR books.
Yes, I was. I know I said I was going to do that. Or I said I was going to take a break to read one of those, and then I didn't. So I guess I'll just have to tack those on to next time. Or maybe I'll finally try reading 2 books at once, like I hear everybody else is doing.
Is your brain equipped for 2 books at once?
I don't know. I guess there's no way to tell until you actually try it.
That's true. I mean, it's not hard. You just have to keep both stories straight. It helps me when I'm reading multiple books at once of different genres.
I think that's probably what I would have to do. I don't think I could read like 2 fantasy books at the same time. I would start to blend the characters, especially with all the silly names and stuff.
You'd be blending their worlds and you'd be so confused.
Yeah, I would totally be like, wait a minute, that is not it at all what's supposed to be happening right now.
Wait, there's no dragons in The Witcher.
Right. It would totally be a mishmash of everything.
So, as stated earlier, this episode is going to be sort of like a game, but not really a game, but also a game, like a guessing game.
You guess?
It's hard to describe, which is, one of the things of having a podcast is you have to be creative. I like to think I'm a creative person, but in this instance, I do not know what to name this game.
It makes me think of Guess Who. You know that game where it's like you say the descriptions of the people and you knock down like the matching thing? It's kind of like that. It's like, here's the different descriptions, and now you have to guess which one I would like.
That's true. We'll go with that. But before we jump into this very ominous game that we keep talking about, we have some more Wikipedia fun facts, again, based around food.
Yes. This one actually was much more interesting than I expected it to be. So today we're going to talk about pizza.
Ooh, that's my favorite food.
Pizza has quite a rich history, which makes sense, but at the same time, I didn't realize how in depth it went.
Now, is it true that pizza was not actually invented in Italy, but it was invented in China?
I did look into that a little bit, and it's kind of yes and no. So modern pizza, what we imagine with like tomatoes and cheese and a crust, was invented supposedly in Naples, Italy.
Okay.
But pizza as like a flatbread, as fundamentally as it exists, in theory was created actually in like Asian culture. So it would have been like China. There's also links to India and even links to some regions in Africa as well.
Interesting. I just feel like when I was a kid, like everybody's dad was like, "Did you know pizza wasn't actually invented in Italy and it was invented in China?" And we were all like, "What?"
I mean, I guess they were kind of right.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like it was just like the fact of the year in like 2006.
It was like one of those things you get on the calendar, that would tell you like a fun fact every day.
Yeah, it kind of seemed like it.
Pizza. So like I mentioned, pizza sort of existed for a very long time, but modern pizza didn't really come around until way later in, again, believed to be Naples, Italy. I started talking about last time with tacos. I talked about the etymology, so actually how the word taco came to be. So I figured I'd do that with pizza as well.
Is that why you made Google pronounce pizza for you a few minutes ago?
Yes. I was curious if it was pronounced differently in Italian. I mean, I know obviously like taco is taco in Spanish, but I just was curious on exactly how it sounds because they do have a different pronunciation, but it's very similar to pizza.
But it's basically the same.
Basically, yeah.
Okay. Go on. I'm interested in the etymology of pizza.
It's not as exciting as the rest, but I think it is kind of funny. So the actual word pizza, Pizza, as we know it today, came from the word pizza, except it was spelled Pitta. And from what I gathered, it was also pronounced how we pronounce pizza today. Pitta, the other version of pizza, was from the Byzantine Greek and late Latin languages, and it sort of evolved from there and eventually became pizza through Italian influence. The actual first mention of the word pizza was in a Latin document that was in the town of Gaeta, which is in southern Italy, and it was from 997 AD. And the text states that the tenant of a certain property is to give the bishop of Gaeta 12 pizzas every Christmas day and another 12 pizzas every Easter Sunday. Which, if you're the bishop, that seems like a pretty sweet gig. You get 12 pizzas one day, and then a couple of months later, you get another 12 pizzas.
I was going to say, what would somebody do with 12 gifted pizzas?
I have no idea.
Is he just sitting around eating pizza all day?
And I didn't look into that too much because I just thought it was a hilarious story, and so I didn't want it to like ruin it by learning more, you know what I mean?
I wonder if he like fed his people with 12 pizzas.
That's what I would assume. If you're a bishop, you probably have like,
or maybe not,
scribes and other things like that with you.
But maybe he was indulging in one of the 7 deadly sins of gluttony and just eating all of the pizza himself. Maybe it's like the one day of the year where it didn't matter.
Maybe. You'll have to, if you ever get the chance to go back in time, you can check in with him.
I feel like that could easily be like a weird internet meme. Like, what would a bishop do with 12 pizzas?
What would a bishop do with 12 pizzas? It feels like a weird riddle. Like, I feel like I've stumbled upon a crazy riddle in like some sort of book.
I swear I'm going to just randomly text somebody that and they're going to be like, what is wrong with you?
It also does sound like a bishop walked into a bar, A bishop has 12 pizzas.
12 pizzas and a bishop walk into a bar.
One of the other fun things about the word pizza, and this is probably my favorite thing about the word itself, is there is a term for a pizza maker, which is a pizzaiolo.
A pizzaiolo?
Pizzaiolo. Pizzaiolo. And it's a very fun word. And I would highly recommend, if you ever get the chance, to look up the Wikipedia page for pizza. And under the history, you will see this absolutely dashing gentleman who is a pizzaiolo in 1830. in his lovely blue jeans, in his green long sleeve shirt, and his brown tunic. And he's got like a white bandana. He's just an amazing gentleman, and I love the way he looks.
All right.
The history of pizza is pretty interesting. There's a whole bunch of mentions of what I mentioned before of pizza in ancient cultures that were, China, Africa, all these different places that had their version of a pizza. But back then, it was more of what we think nowadays as a flatbread or even garlic bread. Like most of the time, it was just bread with some form of fat. So like a lard or a butter or something. And then cheese and garlic and sometimes salt.
Sounds kind of gross.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it was just, think garlic bread is kind of what it was.
So how did pizza evolve into being the tomatoey, cheesy goodness it is today?
That is a fantastic question, and it's actually much more interesting than I realized. So back in the 16th century, there was this thing called the Columbian Exchange, which was essentially when Christopher Columbus sailed to America, he and some other people decided to establish trade routes. And then for the first time ever, people in the old world, which was like Europe and Africa and all those countries over there, and the New World, which was the Americas, were able to trade crops and goods and all that kind of stuff. So before the 16th century, Italy didn't actually have tomatoes. They did not exist.
What?
So now, after the 16th century, they were introduced to tomatoes. So then in the 18th or I should say it's believed that in about the 18th or 19th century, Naples, Italy, created what's believed to be the equivalent of the modern day pizza, or more specifically, the Neapolitan pizza. There's also a pretty interesting story about the margarita pizza.
Oh, I haven't had one of those in ages.
I mean, it's good. I like them whenever I get the chance to try them.
They are good. They're like super thin and crispy and just, they have a different taste about them, but I don't really know how to describe it. And they're like more of chopped tomatoes on it rather than like a tomato sauce.
Yeah, they're kind of like crushed and mashed up, not necessarily blended like a sauce would be.
Oh, now I need to go find a margarita pizza somewhere.
The margarita pizza, though, and this is subject to debate, so depending on who you ask, they might have a different story. But supposedly, a pizzaiolo, which is a pizza maker, Rafael Esposito, created the 3 different pizzas for Queen Margherita, and she ended up liking the one that looked like the Italian flag, which was red tomato, green basil, and then white the mozzarella. And so he named that pizza after her. Again, there's some later research that they say that that's not supposedly accurate, but I still think it's a fun story.
Yeah, I mean, I guess who really knows from that long ago what's actually correct?
Right, it's kind of hard to say. Again, the modern equivalent was this Neapolitan pizza created in Naples, and eventually how it came to America was from Italian immigrants. They opened up the first ever pizzeria, which was Lombardi's in New York City in 1905.
Wow.
One of the other cool things that I found out about the Neapolitan pizza is that there's this special thing called the Traditional Specialty Guarantee, which is TSG. And it's protected under European Union and United Kingdom law, meaning that you have to make it a very specific way, and then you can be labeled as a TSG dish, and then essentially guarantees to the consumer that what they're eating is legitimate and real Neapolitan pizza.
I didn't realize Neapolitan pizza was so regulated.
Yes, they have like this. I went down this crazy rabbit hole of this concept, this TSG concept, and it's really only enforced in like the UK or the European Union, I should say. But they have this like extremely rigorous system that you have to follow. Like the dough has to be a certain moisture content. It can't have any fat, has to be sugar free. It even has a section, like I think it was called Article 6, that after making the pizza and it comes out of the oven, you have to consume it within the same location that it was created. Otherwise, it's not considered Neapolitan pizza. So it has like all these extremely rigorous demands, essentially, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Man, that's kind of nice.
Right. As a consumer, you are guaranteed to get a food or a dish that you know exactly what went into it, which is kind of a cool idea. And this was, I should give a shout out to the True Neapolitan Pizza Association, which is the nonprofit organization that helped create or help get Neapolitan pizza added to this TSG list.
We are not sponsored by Neapolitan Pizza.
No, but that would be cool. So, pizza, very interesting history. Once again, please look at the Wikipedia page and look at this lovely gentleman because I love his pants. I don't know why.
They're just like randomly going to get however many hits on this Wikipedia page one day because of you.
That would be hilarious. They're all of a sudden like, what's up with the crazy increased traffic on pizza?
That is so funny. But now I know more boring party facts.
Exactly. Something just to share when you get trapped in a little bit of small talk.
Are you ready to start our little guessing game?
I am. So just to clarify, we're going to go through these and then I have to guess which book you would pick, and then you're going to guess which book I would pick, right?
Yep. After we go through all of June's Book of the Month picks, we are going to say which one we think the other is most likely to pick for themselves.
Okay.
And if we're correct, I mean, there's no prize. And if we're wrong, then it's just, I guess we really don't know each other as well as we thought.
Wow, that's a pretty heavy penalty for no prize. The prize is nothing, and the loss is, hey, guess what? You guys don't actually know each other that well. Pretty heavy rule set here.
What would the prize even be? I will buy you this book. Oh, that's actually a pretty
we
good
could do
prize.
that. If you get it right, the person has to buy the other person's book.
I like that. Let's go with that. So the first option is Honey by Isabel Banta, and this is contemporary fiction. Now, in short, this book is about the rise of a pop star with a voice like honey that everybody wants a piece of. Now, you're probably wondering, well, there has to be more to that story than that. And there is. So the full take on this book is, it is 1997, and Amber Young has received a life-changing call. It is a chance thousands of girls would die for. The opportunity to join girl group Cloud9 in Los Angeles and escape her small town. She quickly finds herself in the orbits of fellow rising stars Gwen Morris, a driven singer and dancer, and Wes Kingston, a member of the biggest boy band in the world, ETA. As Amber embarks on her solo career and her fame intensifies, her rich interior life is frequently reduced. Surrounded by people who claim to love her but only wish to exploit her, Amber comes of age at a time when public opinion can distort everything and one mistake can shatter a career. So this book reimagines the superstars we idolized and hated, over-sexualized and underestimated, and gives them the fresh, multifaceted story they deserve. Now, Book of the Month does this thing for each of the books where they give them tags, so you can kind of get more of a sense of what this book is going to be like without actually having to read that entire synopsis that I just read for you. So Book of the Month tags this one as being salacious, music, 90s, and glamorous. So what do you think so far?
I love the word salacious, but...
I meant about the book.
Well, I assumed that's what you were talking about. The book seems like an interesting perspective. I definitely like that.
I do like how it says it reimagines pop stars into like being normal people in a sense.
Right. I like the idea that it's going to kind of subvert your expectations right off the bat, and it lets you know, so it doesn't just sound like another, I guess, pop star book.
Right. I can't get over that boy band name in here is ETA, estimated time of arrival, unless that has another meaning than that.
No, I'm as far as I know, that's what I know what that means. Do you know if that's what it means in the book as well?
I have no idea. It doesn't say. And the synopsis doesn't say. It just says the biggest boy band in the world in this book is ETA. I just think that's funny.
I agree, that is funny.
So what's our next option?
The next one on the list is One Star Romance by Laura Hankin. This is a romance book.
I could have probably figured that out by the title.
You know, it's a hard one to figure out. The quick bite for this book is fun, hijinks, and chemistry abound when a struggling artist and stern academic butt heads over a one-star book review. The deep look is Natalie and Rob couldn't have less in common. Nat's a messy artist and Rob's a rigid academic. The only thing they share is their devotion to their respective best friends who just got engaged. Still, unexpected chemistry has Natalie cautiously optimistic about being maid of honor to Rob's best man. Until minutes before the ceremony, Nat learns that Rob wrote a one-star review of her new novel, which has them both reeling. Nat from imposter syndrome and Rob over the reason he needed to write it. When the reception ends, these two opposites hope they'll never meet again, but as they slip from their 20s into their 30s, they're forced together when their fast-track best friends celebrate another milestone. Through housewarmings and christenings, life-changing triumphs and failures, Natalie and Rob grapple with their own choices and how your harshest critic can become your perfectly imperfect match. The Book of the Month tags for this are emotional, multiple POVs, writer's life, and enemies to lovers. What are your first impressions of this?
Well, multiple POVs means multiple points of view, in case we're not good with acronyms. But I mean, honestly, this one, yes, it sounds like a cheesy romance novel, but it kind of sounds like it could be fun.
It does have me interested. I think whoever wrote this synopsis did a really good job because I really want to know what the one-star review was.
I know, but that makes me nervous because I feel like sometimes these publishers write really intriguing summaries of these books. And then when you read it, it's totally different than what the synopsis is. And it doesn't live up to the hype.
Oh, it's kind of like when a movie releases a really good trailer and then the movie is just clips from the trailer, or it seems like they took all the best clips from the movie and put them in the trailer.
Right, exactly. So, I don't know. I think it still seems fun and it kind of seems to have a different concept. So, it sounds cute, kind of.
It does have a little bit of a meta level, which has me hesitant of a writer writing about a writer. Seems a little on the nose, but maybe they did it kind of elegantly.
I feel like more books recently have been doing the thing where they talk more about authors, or their main subjects is an author, a publisher, or something like that, where more books are leaning into the being about books kind of thing.
I guess it always has been a bit of a taboo subject because, again, it's very on the nose. A writer writing about a writer is kind of just odd.
Yeah, but they also say to write what you know.
True. And I guess it would be pretty easy to write from Natalie's point of view if she's the writer and the author is sort of just following it naturally. So maybe it could be really well written too.
Our next Book of the Month option is The Lion Women of Tehran by Marjan Kamali. And this is a historical fiction. In short, this one is a rapidly transforming Iran plays backdrop to this drama about the evolution of a complex friendship between two girls. But if we dive a little deeper, in 1950s Tehran, 7-year-old Ellie lives in grand comfort until the untimely death of her father, forcing Ellie and her mother to move to a tiny home downtown. Lonely and bearing the brunt of her mother's endless grievances, Ellie dreams of a friend to alleviate her isolation. On the first day of school, she meets Homa, a kind, passionate girl with a brave spirit. Together, the two girls play games, learn to cook, wander through the colorful stalls of the Grand Bazaar, and share their ambitions for becoming lion women. But their happiness is disrupted when Ellie and her mother are afforded the opportunity to return to their previous bourgeois life. Now a popular student at the best girls' high school in Iran, Ellie's memories of Homa begin to fade. Years later, however, Homa's sudden reappearance in Ellie's privileged world alters the course of both of their lives. Together, the two young women come of age and pursue their own goals for meaningful futures. But as the political turmoil in Iran builds to a breaking point, one earth-shattering betrayal will have enormous consequences. Book of the Month tags this as being feminist, family drama, female friendships, and international. So this one seems kind of sad.
That was my immediate impression. This seems like the book is going to be like, you can't see my hand, but extremely thick and very pull at the heartstrings.
It does seem that way. Like, can you imagine being like 7 years old and then you leave your best friend and you end up forgetting about her?
Right. And then she shows back up.
Yeah. Like, what? This author's gonna break a lot of hearts with this book.
I could definitely see that.
And this one, if I'm remembering correctly, I did look it up on Goodreads and it has a pretty high rating so far. It has over 4 stars average on Goodreads, which is really good.
Do you know if this is the author's first book?
I do not. I've never heard of this author though, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's a debut because Book of the Month does like to showcase debut authors.
It definitely it doesn't feel like a debut, which is why I mentioned that. And after a quick Google search, it is not her debut. She has looks like 2 other novels before this one.
Oh, well, that's good. But this one definitely does sound interesting. I do like historical fictions, and this one does seem different than most that I have read. And it does seem to be that type of historical fiction where it doesn't focus too much on the actual historical events. It focuses more on a story within that time period. Although it does mention political turmoil, so it may touch a little bit on what was happening in Iran during that time, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be the main focus of this book.
On to our next one. This one is A Talent for Murder by Peter Swanson. It's a thriller.
Ooh, I haven't read a thriller in a while now that I think about it.
Maybe this is the one for you.
Maybe.
The quick bit on this one is if you begin to suspect the spouse you recently married might be a murderer, what would you do?
Oh, that is a very good question.
I could tell you, I think I would just mind my own business.
Act like they're not a murderer.
I don't know what side of the coin that puts me on, but I'm sticking to it for now.
Yeah, I don't know.
So taking a deeper dive, Martha Ratliff conceded long ago that she'd likely spend her life alone. She was fine with it, stimulated by her job as an archival librarian, but she then met Alan, a charming and sweet-natured divorcee with a job that took him on the road for half the year. When he asked her to marry him, she said yes, even though he still felt a bit like a stranger. A year in, and the marriage was good, except for that strange blood streak on the back of one of his shirts he worn to a conference in Denver. Her curiosity turns to suspicion. Martha investigates the cities Alan visited over the past years and uncovers a disturbing pattern. 5 unsolved cases of murdered women. Is she married to a serial killer? Or could it be merely a coincidence? Unsure of what to think, Martha contacts an old friend from graduate school for advice. Intrigued, Lily offers to meet Alan to find out what kind of man he really is. But what Lily uncovers is more perplexing and wicked than they ever could have expected. The tags for this book are psychological, multiple point of views, non-linear timeline, and marriage issues.
All right, so first off, I just want to say this book sounds ridiculous. If I'm married to a man and he comes home with a big old blood streak on the back of his shirt, I'd be like, what were you doing? I feel like I would have no choice then but to just confront him and be like, why are you covered in blood?
I can't even think of like a good excuse for that.
There is no good excuse. Like, I mean, I guess he could say, oh, I like fell, but
But you would have an injury. Like, I helped someone on the street who fell.
okay,
maybe?
this is a good theoretical. If you came home from somewhere and you had blood on your clothes, and let's say you actually are a murderer, but you don't want your wife to know that you're a murderer, what do you tell her?
I can't think of anything that doesn't sound even more suspicious. Like, what do you say?
First thing that comes into your head, what are you saying?
I would be like, someone got hurt and I had to help them. There was like a crazy car accident or something, which just sounds 10,000 times more suspicious.
It does, because your spouse like knows you, right?
Right.
So what if they're like, "Oh, but you hate blood. You're not a doctor. You don't
Right.
you don't do
exactly.
any of that."
Why wouldn't you just like call the police or something. Like, I can't think of anything. Like, for some reason, my brain went to like, I don't know, maybe I helped a farm animal or helped a animal on the side of the road or something. But even then, you would be like, why are you touching gross animals on the side of the road? What's wrong with you?
Why are you stopping for roadkill?
Exactly. So
I don't even know what I would say to that. Like, the first thing that came into my head, I was like, oh, I got hit by a bus. But like, if I got
it's
hit
chill. I'm cool.
if I got hit by a bus, I wouldn't be standing here.
Right. Like, you know how it happens. Just your classic bus hit.
So I actually looked up A Talent for Murder on Goodreads earlier as well. And this is actually number 3 of a series, which that's one of my gripes with Book of the Month. They don't always disclose if books are part of a series. And it seems to be like they don't disclose if it's a part of a series, if they could be read as a standalone. So I'm assuming this one could be read as a standalone, but my brain would probably not let me read this one unless I read the other 2 before it.
I am curious on because from the description, it seems like it is self-contained. Like, this seems like its own story through and through. But
It does, but apparently the Lily character that is mentioned in the synopsis, she is also in the other 2 books, and it kind of seems like it might be sort of like a detective-y kind of thing.
Oh.
I didn't look too much into it, so I can't say for sure what it is, but I do know the Lily character mentioned in here seems to be the connecting factor for the series.
Gotcha. Okay.
But this one sounds hilarious, and it kind of sounds like a book that I would hate read. No offense. Like, just for fun, just to make fun of.
It seems a little like it's probably going to be a little bit over the top, but I don't think that's in a negative way.
Sometimes over the top is good. That one certainly sounds fun. And our final Book of the Month option for June is Margot's Got Money Troubles by Rufi Thorpe. And this is literary fiction. And before I even get into this one, I will just say this is another ridiculous sounding book, so you have been warned.
Looking forward to it.
The quick take is affairs, pro wrestlers, not safe for work content, oh my. Follow the rollicking journey of a young mother making ends meet.
Great start.
I know, we're off to a wonderful start with this one. But if we dive a little deeper, as the child of a Hooters waitress and an ex-pro wrestler, Margot Millet's always known she'd have to make it on her own. So she enrolls at her local junior college, even though she can't imagine how she'll ever make a living. She's still figuring things out and never planned to have an affair with her English professor. And while the affair is brief, it isn't brief enough to keep her from getting pregnant. Despite everyone's advice, she decides to keep the baby, mostly out of a yearning of something bigger. Now at 20, Margot is alone with an infant, unemployed, and on the verge of eviction. She needs a cash infusion, and fast. When her estranged father Jinx shows up on her doorstep and asks to move in with her, she agrees in exchange for help with childcare. Then Margot begins to form a plan. She'll start an OnlyFans as an experiment, and soon finds herself adapting some of Jinx's advice from the world of wrestling, like how to craft a compelling character and make your audience fall in love with you. Before she knows it, she's turned it into a runaway success. Could this be the answer to all of Margot's problems? Or does internet fame come with too high a price? Now, this is tagged as being LOL, laugh out loud, salacious, underdog, and mama drama.
This seems like insanity.
This seems like a train wreck.
It really does. They do use the word salacious, though, which, again, I like that word.
Yes, and it seems like, just from looking at past Book of the Month picks as well, salacious seems to be a new theme for Book of the Month.
It's just a fun word. I don't know exactly what it means. I mean, I can kind of gather, but I just think it's a fun word to say.
Well, Book of the Month also has little emojis next to their tags, and the emoji for salacious is a peach.
Oh.
So that's what salacious means.
I guess maybe I should stop saying I like that word. Like
Yeah,
that's not what I mean. I like the sound of the word. I don't necessarily know what the context of it means.
People are going to think you're creepy if you keep saying you like that word.
I'm sorry. It's a fun word to say. Just say it. It's a fun word.
I mean, it is a fun word, but I'm pretty sure it means like saucy, scandalous.
Well, I don't particularly feel one way or another about that. But the word is fun to say.
So I think the thing that gets me most about this synopsis is that it kind of starts out as a train wreck and ends as a train wreck.
Yeah.
I don't know how Margot redeems herself in the actual book, if she does. I'd be interested to know that.
Maybe she just forms this small business of hers and runs away with it. Why not?
Yeah, her salacious small business.
I did just look up the definition of that word, and
Was I correct?
yeah, I'm not a creep. It's like mama drama. They put it in there. That's just a fun combo to say.
I mean, Book of the Month does like to have fun with their stuff. Their social media recently has been hilarious. Whoever is running their social media account is a genius.
I was actually going to mention, ever since we started this, I've been getting their like advertisements and recommended videos and all that kind of stuff all the time. And they are actually very entertaining.
They are. So, Book of the Month is doing well with social media. And they definitely have some interesting different picks for the month of June. I think the most ridiculous out of all of these is Margot's Got Money Troubles. Also, the title of that book it's just funny to me that the author would name it that.
It seems like it had to have been written this year. Or is book of the month usually new books?
Yes. They're either books that were released right at the end of May or books that are about to be released at the beginning of June.
Oh, okay. I like that idea.
Yeah, so they're all brand new, and kind of the perk of joining these book subscription boxes is that you do get to read a book that maybe not everybody has access to yet. So that's kind of nice. These book subscriptions also like to support debut authors, I find a lot. So I'm not sure which of the ones this month are debuts, but I know there's usually at least one that is a debut novel. But I think Book of the Month did well. And are you ready to take a guess?
I'm still kind of trying to decide which one I think I would want.
I think I know what one you would pick, but I'm not going to say until you decide for yourself.
One brief moment.
I'm also kind of deciding between two right now.
I think I know which one you would pick.
Good, because I don't know which one I would pick.
I have to like sit with my pick for a second and make sure that this is the one that I want.
I need to imagine the book if I were to read it, if I would enjoy it.
I've picked my book. I've marked it down. Do you want me to guess yours first? Which one you'd pick first?
Yeah, go ahead. Which book would I choose?
I think, I'm like all of a sudden really nervous. I don't want to get wrong. I don't know. Hit me like a wave.
Spoiler alert, it's all of them. No, I'm just kidding.
One of each, please. I think that you would pick The Lion Women of Tehran.
That's actually correct.
Woo!
I was going between that one and the One Star Romance, but the Lion Women of Tehran just sounds more interesting because a romance is a romance is a romance.
Right.
But this one just sounds so different than other historical fictions that I think I would enjoy it.
What I did is I put myself in your shoes. I think if you had it in front of you and you were looking at them, that you would be like, I already read a bunch of romances this month or something. And then you would pick the historical fiction.
I did read a lot of romances in the month of May. So I think I'm overdue for a historical fiction. All right, I'm ready to guess yours. I think you would choose A Talent for Murder.
That is correct.
Ah, I knew it. I knew it. You can't resist a crazy story.
No, I can't. It just seems so over the top.
And I guess if it doesn't bother you that it's technically third in a series, then that's even better because then you don't have to read 2 books before you read this one.
Yeah, it seems self-contained, like from the description. So it wouldn't bother me that it potentially is the third in a series. It almost kind of reminds me of, after you gave that explanation of, who is it, Lily seems to be in the other books, it kind of reminds me of the Knives Out movies, where they're independent, even though it still has the same like main character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, if we ever do read these books, I guess we'll have to let you know.
True. Maybe I'll have to add this one to the old TBR.
Or next time we find ourselves sauntering into a Barnes & Noble, we'll just have to buy these books for each other because we did guess correctly.
We did, that's true.
And there was no set prize. But at least now we don't have to live with the shame that we don't really know each other as well as we thought.
True. Like I said, the prize to like the risk to reward ratio is a bit off this time. Maybe we'll think of better prizes for the next one.
I kind of like that. The stakes are higher. If you lose,
That's
it's
true.
worse.
That's true. It adds a little edge to it.
It does. And it's fun. So I'm glad we chose correctly and we got to go over some Book of the Month June picks, which was actually pretty interesting to learn. I haven't paid attention to Book of the Month in a few months now, so this was all very refreshing for me. I feel like I'm back in my Book of the Month element, even though my subscription is paused, so I will not actually be getting a book this month anyway.
That's funny.
I'm trying to save $15 a month, okay?
There's a current sign-on bonus for like $5. I thought about doing it.
I mean, it's worth it if you can skip months that you don't like any of the books.
I just thought of a good name for this, I think.
What is it?
Under the Page.
Under the Page?
Yeah, so like under the knife, under the gun is like the pressure's on, under the page, under the book, risk versus reward. I think there's something there.
There might be. We might have to do more troubleshooting before we officially title this episode. So now that we have gone through Book of the Month, we have guessed each other's picks. What are you reading this week?
This week, as I mentioned earlier, I decided to jump right into the next Witcher book, which is called Baptism of Fire. And this takes place right after the next one. I believe the one after this, there's a bit of a time jump. So that one is, I believe, a couple of years in the future. But this one seems to take place right after it. And I'm about one chapter in, which is about 50 pages for these books. And it's been good so far. It does the same thing I mentioned before, which is it does that build up and it kind of reminds you of everything that happened in the previous chapter. But this one feels like it's moving a bit quicker. It's kind of brought up to speed in just one chapter rather than sort of over the course of two. So I'm excited to get to new and fun and exciting stuff.
That's always fun. My favorite thing about reading series is seeing how everything progresses over the course of each book. And it's always fun when the next book in a series brings on something new. Because sometimes I feel like series kind of fall flat in the sense where each book kind of surrounds the same theme.
Yeah, if it's like sort of the same problem or thing. Yeah. And I think the author does a very good job at creating a unique story. It definitely feels like the story was built and then the book was written, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the book I'm currently reading is actually part of a duology. So there's going to be more to it when I'm finished with it. But I am currently reading Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. And it is actually so good. It reminds me of Avatar: The Last Airbender because it takes place in, I guess it takes place in China, but not really in China because it does take place in an immortal realm. So this book also surrounds mythology. It surrounds Chinese mythology. So it talks about, obviously, the moon goddess, and it intersperses some Chinese myths surrounding how there came to be only one sun and all of that kind of stuff. But it reminds me of Avatar: The Last Airbender because it does talk about the air, fire, water, earth powers. And for some reason, every time I picture the main character, I can't help but picture the blind girl in Avatar who can throw the rocks.
Toph.
Yes, I can't help but picture her, even though the main character is nothing like her. But for some reason, that's the image that pops into my head. And it's been making the book so entertaining for me. Because, Toph is this, like, super, super strong girl. And she, like, can fight and whatever. And she'll always win.
She's very strong-willed.
Yes,
Yeah.
And that's what this main character reminds me of. Because she is a very strong-willed female who actually joins what they call is their celestial army. She becomes first archer, so she's really good with a bow and arrow. She can like aim from super far away and she'll hit the target all the time. And she's become well known throughout the immortal realm for that.
That's pretty cool. That book sounds interesting.
It is really interesting. It kind of throws in some romance in there, but not too much. So basically, the main character, she had to leave her mother's palace because the celestial empress, who basically rules all of the celestial kingdom, which is the immortal peoples, she did not know that the moon goddess had a daughter with the guy who slayed the sons. Sons as in the sun in the sky. And apparently it's like this whole big deal, and it's really bad that the moon goddess has a daughter with a mortal. Even though the moon goddess started out as a mortal and she was banished to the immortal realm, and the celestial empress got wind that there was like some new energy brewing in the moon goddess's palace because the main character's powers were finally coming in. And that's a bad thing. So the main character had to leave the moon palace and go to a different palace and basically pretend to be this not orphan girl, but this random girl in the celestial kingdom whose parents are no longer with her. And she becomes a companion to a prince, and it kind of all goes from there. And then she joins the celestial army, and it's been years and years and years, and she's still hoping to go home to her mother, the moon goddess. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this book ends.
Yeah, it's quite the ride.
It is quite the ride. I have no complaints, though. I'm really enjoying it. It has a lot of action scenes and a lot of storytelling as well. So it's really interesting.
Sounds like a good one.
It is. So I'm excited for that. And then obviously the next one in the duology, I don't remember the name of it, but it also sounds like it's going to be really good. And I've heard the second one is even better than the first one. So
Oh, wow.
I have high hopes for this duology. But that was Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sulin Tan. So before we sign off for today, I have to know. I'm just going to ask you this every time now. What are you obsessed with?
This week, I would say that my obsession has turned probably to Dungeons and Dragons.
Interesting.
The past 2 days, I've gotten the creative itch to continue to build my campaign that I started last year. I don't have anybody playing yet. I'm trying to gather players, but I've started building the world again. I think for whatever reason, finishing that Witcher book sort of sparked it in me and made me want to do it again. So I've been working on more of that, and it's been fun. I really enjoy the world building aspect in creating a storyline and linking characters and all that kind of stuff. It's just fun to do that. It scratches that creative itch that I think some people look for. Besides that, it's still been video games. I've been playing a lot of Slay the Spire still. I will probably always be obsessed with that game. And I've been playing a little bit of Destiny 2 the past week. And if you're a gamer out there, you probably just covered your ears and closed your eyes. I promise the game isn't as bad as it used to be. The company is iffy, but the game is still good. What have you been obsessed with this week?
I can't stop thinking about Plate Up.
Oh,
That's
a very fun game.
all that's been on my mind. I just keep waiting for the weekend so we can play Plate Up, which is like Overcooked 2, but somehow harder.
Yeah, so Plate Up is a bird's eye view cooking game similar to the Overcooked franchise, except it's made by Yogscast Games, and it focuses more on being like a roguelite type game where it incentivizes you to sort of fail, and then you unlock more things, and then you re-go back in and you keep trying over and over. And it's got an automation aspect to it. So in theory, if you get lucky or if you get the right things or what have you, you can actually pretty much automate your kitchen.
We can't get past a 3-star restaurant, which is bothering me.
Yeah. It has a progression system each day, and
we will never have a 5-star restaurant at this rate.
hey, at the start of the night, we couldn't even get past day like 2, and now we're at least getting to like day 6 or 7. So
I think the highest we've gotten is day 9.
yeah, I think that's right.
We can't even last like 2 whole weeks owning a restaurant.
Absolutely not.
We burnt down a restaurant.
That's true, we did.
Just when I thought it couldn't get worse than Overcooked, it did get worse. But I like this one because you can be in the back cooking and I can be serving everybody.
Yeah, there is a bit of a distinction.
I can be the waiter because I'm not good with the cooking.
Yeah, Overcooked, you kind of have to both do a little bit of everything, as where Played Up, it incentivizes having like designated stations.
I can't really decide which one I like better because I do like both of them for different reasons.
Yeah, they both scratch the same itch, but they have their different like subsections of what's more fun.
Right, like Overcooked, I like having to come up with a strategy to get all of your orders in on time. But Played Up, I like that you kind of don't really need to do that. You can kind of just set up your restaurant in a way that you like. And then you can kind of like fake it till you make it in a way.
Right, yeah. Like Overcooked, you have to almost build a strategy, and it's really fun to execute that strategy, and it works. And then Played Up, like you mentioned, is kind of like some days you might just be like, let's just skate by as quickly as we can or whatever, just to get to the next day and get a little extra money or something.
Until we burn our restaurant down.
True. Played Up is also on, I believe, all consoles. I know it's on Xbox and PC for certain, and it's up to 4-player couch co-op, which, if you're a gamer, is in trying times. Couch co-op comes few and far between nowadays. It's a very fun game, though.
What does couch co-op mean?
Couch co-op is essentially you can sit on the same couch or in the same room and play with each other, and you don't need to have separate systems. A lot of games nowadays require you to actually have like 2 Xboxes or 2 Switches or something and bring them into the same room or connect online. And that's just plain co-op, as where couch co-op is you can be on the same system sitting in the same room together.
I hate that not all games you can just play on one console multiplayer because that just seems like such a waste. I'm not going to go out and buy 2 Xboxes just so we can play a game together.
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating, especially like everybody in sort of the gaming world feels the same way. It's very frustrating.
Because then I need 2 televisions.
Right.
And I'm not going to stick 2 televisions in my living room.
You need literally 2 of everything.
That is what's wrong with America.
That's what's wrong with gaming, man. It's rough out here.
Well, good thing I'm not a gamer, really.
I'm pulling you to the dark side a little bit. We're starting with Played Up, and then we're going to make our way to some more advanced games.
Well, I finally know where all the buttons are on the controller, which is a good start.
That's true. You were playing with the Xbox controller for like the second time ever versus normally we play on the Switch.
Yes, and I just hate that not all controllers can have all the same buttons in the same place.
Oh, and Played Up is also free on Game Pass right now. So if you have Xbox and you have a Game Pass, you can check it out.
Does that mean we can keep it forever?
Until it goes off Game Pass.
Well, I'm pretty sure everyone can guess what we will be doing this weekend. Playing more Played Up and reading. You know, we always got to be reading. But this was another very fun episode. Again, glad we guessed each other's books correctly. I liked getting to learn about pizza and the origins of pizza. And everyone, don't forget to go to the Wikipedia page and look at that handsome gentleman.
Oh, yeah. Pizza YOLO.
But we will be back next week with another fantastic episode. And in the meantime, go outside, get some fresh air, and, you know, maybe read a book outdoors. That's always a fun thing to do. Happy reading.